Hoosier Nation. What in the world was that? Who had IU stomping on into the State Farm Center, winning by double digits, stomping on in right back to Assembly Hall, beating Michigan State by double digits? What the hell? We were sitting here 2 weeks ago talking about NIT and a disastrous basketball season, and now your Indiana Hoosiers are back into the top 20 of KenPom, are now being talked about as a top tier team in the Big Ten. What in the world do we make of IU's 3-game Big Ten winning streak, all of which have come by double digits? We're going to dive into that, preview IU's 2 Big Ten games this week, and so much more here on episode 280 of the Hoosier Sound. We're the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Monday, January 23rd, where I'm your host, Nathan Christian. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, as I said just now, we've done 280 of these podcast episodes. I have never seen a bigger turnaround between two recordings than the one that we just saw. What a stunning 180 by this team. Trayce Jackson-Davis is possibly God. Indiana's getting contributions from Tamar Bates and Jordan Geronimo and Trey Galloway and Tamar Bates. I think I said him already. Malik Renew, they're all improving. What in the world do you take away from IU's 2 incredible wins over the course of the last few days?
What do I take away? I take away the team has kind of turned a corner that I didn't expect them to turn. I think I am not alone when I say that a majority of the fan base, along with myself, believe that, doom and gloom status of after the Penn State game. And rightfully so, too. Again, that was a miserable performance against a team that I'm high on, right? Like, personally, like on my other podcast, I've talked about multiple times how good I think Penn State is. But it's like not this good, right? Like I didn't think they were as good as the team that Indiana made them look. And then again, I thought that had a lot to do with Indiana's not playing with a purpose, not playing with hustle, just playing bad basketball, and just looking altogether disconnected. And quite literally was the opposite on Sunday, yesterday. And was also different at Illinois as well. I last episode I said I thought I saw some great signs from the Wisconsin win. I didn't expect us to kind of look like that, but we have 2 tough wins, and like I said, trying to keep our head above 500 in the conference, and go 1-1. I did not expect us at all to go 2-0 this week, especially since these were 2 of some of IU's toughest games on the schedule. Like Michigan State's a top 2-3 team in the conference, and Illinois has the potential to be a top 2 or 3 team in the conference, and you're playing in Champaign,
right?
And here we are, 2-0 off that week, going to, by the way, the worst team in the league on Wednesday in Minnesota, and then have a very, very winnable game at home against Ohio State, who's completely blowing all the good mojo that they had at the beginning of the year. And so both the games this week are now very winnable. And all of a sudden, Indiana's sitting here at 4-4 in the conference. It's like you look around the rest of the conference. Indiana, if they go 2-0 this week, could be second overall in the conference, are fighting for second place in the conference, when I was just wanting them to end up in like 7th or 8th. I don't think Indiana will end up competing with Purdue for the title this year.
Me neither.
Purdue looks too good. I wouldn't mind beating Purdue a couple times this year, regardless of whether they win the title or not. But that's a whole different story. So again, I'm super proud of the way the team has played so far this year. I'm, and especially this week. And all props should go to the coaching staff, because I think the job that they've done over the last 2 weeks has been amazing. I was listening to another podcast today, and they were talking about, immediate reactions after the game, and they're like, wow, they were changing things up mid-game. And it was like, it's funny because I think 2 weeks ago, Nathan, I came on this podcast begging for the the coaching staff to make changes.
Do
And not only
something
they
different. Mix up the rotation.
right,
Something.
not only are they making changes, they're making changes mid-game. Like they started making changes after IU had a slow start. Michigan State was kind of doing their thing. Indiana started to pull Trayce out from the post a bit more and kind of get him going downhill. And all of a sudden, Michigan State couldn't stop Trayce, and boom, the doors basically blew open on the offense for IU. So I do find this turnaround miraculous, and I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on it, because again, I said I want IU to stay afloat in the Big Ten. It's like they don't have to stay afloat anymore. They can go flying now. They can take off and be the top two, top three team that we all thought they were at the beginning there, even though you're still down your potential, not all American point guard, but all Big Ten point guard, right? So
I'm absolutely shocked that this team has figured it out this quickly. I was at Bryce Jordan Center. You have to understand, I drove 3 hours each way from where I live in Philadelphia to watch that team.
That's rough.
Wet the bed against Penn State. I mean, I was hopeless. And I think I referenced this last week, but if I didn't, the next night, Minnesota went on the road and won at Ohio State. And I'm sitting here and saying, Indiana's the worst team in the Big Ten. How did it get to this point?
I didn't think Indiana was the worst team in the Big Ten. And
just like that, this following Saturday, they figured it out against Wisconsin. We were a little skeptical. They didn't have Tyler Wall. It was an ugly first half. And then you saw a team with a little bit of extended rest go into Champaign on Thursday night and crush that Illinois team. And then Indiana faced some adversity on Sunday, had to come back from a couple of deficits, a couple of rough patches of play throughout the game, and ended up winning by double digits against the Spartans. And again, you're absolutely right. Go look at the analytics, go look at the numbers, go look at the records, whatever. Michigan State was an underdog on Sunday in Bloomington, but they've played top 3 level basketball in the Big Ten since the league restarted in the beginning of January. Indiana made it look relatively easy against the Spartans. And I'm sitting here and I'm talking about a turnaround that to me is one of the most incredible in-season turnarounds that we've seen in college basketball, at least at the men's level, in a long time. Now, a lot of people will say, you idiot, didn't you just watch UNC go on a big run last year in the NCAA tournament? You're absolutely right. But remember, that North Carolina team made some serious personnel changes during the course of the season. Kerwin Walton was taken out of the rotation. Dawson Garcia was taken out, basically exiled from the North Carolina program. And you're going to see Dawson Garcia this Wednesday with Minnesota, which goes to show you exactly what UNC thought of him. And that was a serious personnel change that Hubert Davis made. You'd have said, hey, idiot, a couple years ago, UCLA went on a big run of the NCAA tournament. But that UCLA team, they had a couple of overtime wins in March Madness. They also got Abilene Christian on their NCAA tournament run-in on their way to the Final Four. Let's not kid ourselves. That UCLA team got some breaks along the way. Indiana, they have not made a personnel change. They have not gotten the benefit of an easy schedule. They have not had close calls in overtime against Big Ten opponents. They are absolutely slaughtering people over the course of the last week and a half. And Wisconsin got Tyler Wall back. And yeah, they returned to Madison. But Wisconsin handled a really good Penn State team in up north in that Big Ten game. And I'm sitting here and saying, holy smokes, how have we gotten to this point? And I have to tip my cap. I'm going to tip my cap to the coaches. I'm going to tip my cap to the players. What you see right now is a team that is connected, is a team that's bonded. Last week we were talking on this podcast how the glue guy and the bubblegum guy and the duct tape guy are all missing on this team. And they've somehow bonded and come together, and you see everyone playing for each other. You're seeing guys get to the floor first for loose balls. You're seeing people pump up the Assembly Hall crowd. You're seeing Miller Kopp step up and pat Trey Galloway on the back, and you're seeing Trey Galloway step up and pat Miller Kopp on the back, and Malik Renew's diving everywhere, and Trayce Jackson-Davis is doing everything. I mean, make no mistake about it, Matt. The team is playing better. They're more connected. They're more passionate about the game. They're seeing the results pay off. But we've gone far enough here without talking about Trayce Jackson-Davis. What an unreal stretch of play by Indiana's senior captain. This is why he came back, right? To have a stretch like this.
Right.
What do you make of Jackson-Davis here? Is this the kind of player we're going to see the rest of the way, or will it regress a little, but he'll still be a dominant force this season?
This is the Trayce I always thought we were going to see. It's just that he had a bit of a back injury, especially, he took a tumble during the Rutgers game, and he hasn't really looked the same since. I was even talking about in the first couple minutes of last game. I thought he was missing some bunnies, and I'm like, and he's not moving the same. I'm like, it looks like his back's kind of tightening up. And then, as the game moved on, it kind of looked like his back kind of loosened up. And all of a sudden, he felt a lot more comfortable to do all the things that he was willing to do. He sees the ball go in a couple times, and then boom, the confidence is through the roof again. So again, like that's the player that I expected to see this year. And that's why expectations were so damn high for this team. I personally put money on Trayce Jackson-Davis to win National Player of the Year at the start of the year, because I foresaw this team needing a kind of performance like this from him, and believing that he can do this, because again, I've seen Trayce Jackson-Davis have these kinds of amazing performances before. And now we're kind of seeing him string it together multiple times in a row against really good teams. I follow, his name is DK at Spartan Hoops.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Michigan State guy. And I talk to him every once in a while about IU and Michigan State stuff. He has a running joke that, Trayce Jackson-Davis can't win big games because it's like Trayce is like statistically like 5 in like 40 something or 30 something against Power 5 opponents, away from home and as a starter. And it's like, boom, goes out and absolutely kills Illinois on the road. So again, like, I think Trayce is kind of finally proving to people like, hey, I'm an all-time great. I've just been stuck on teams with either a bad coach, or B, just some bad rosters that were left over from a bad coach. And he's finally on his first good Mike Woodson team. And things are working out well. And it's not just Trayce stepping up either. It's, in this game, it was Tamar Bates and Trey Galloway. And in the previous games, it was Jalen Hood-Schifino. You're getting contributions from other guys on this team, and that is what I wanted going into this year. I said, I expected Trayce to be that guy, right? And to be that dude on campus, right? But he was gonna need help, and I said that the ceiling of this team really hinged upon can Tamar Bates take that next jump? Can Tamar Bates take a step up in production? And if, he goes the last 3 games scoreless and then has, an 18, 19 point game from him against Michigan State, shoots lights out, and his little girl wins the baby race. Like, again, like, you're going to need players like that to step up as the season goes on. I am looking forward to kind of seeing, hey, Tamar, like, what do you have in store for us Hoosier fans as the year goes on? Like, where's the where can the growth go? Like what's the ceiling for you, and what's the ceiling for this team as you kind of grow into this role? Because you can see, he's not going to be 8 of 9 shooting 3 every day, right? Like, that's not every game, but he can be 4 of 6. He can be 3 of 5. He could be, that's something, especially if he takes smart shots. He's such a good shooter, and he's going to get open looks with the way Trayce is playing.
Oh, yeah.
He can be a major contributor on this team down the stretch. And so I'm interested to see, with the 2 games you have at Minnesota and then at home against Ohio State, what's Tamar's stat line like? Because if it's zeros again, I'm kind of gonna start to get nervous that, again, it's just going to be a Trayce and Jalen Hood-Schifino show, which is fine, but you definitely need other guys to kind of step up in other ways. Miller Kopp did it, kind of from a leadership standpoint in this past game. You saw George Geronimo on the road at Illinois step up.
Absolutely.
You're good. It's going to have to be by committee, but that's why we were so excited again at the beginning of the year about IU's potential, because they had a deep team, right? We were talking about how deep IU's, and finally IU's kind of putting it all together, and the pieces are kind of starting to shine. There's a whole other level this team can take, but right now the level they're at is top 3 in the Big Ten, probably a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. And playing well, but there's, you can just watch this team play for a little bit. You go, wow, there's runs and stretches this team goes on. You're like, this team could be a national title contending team if they're all clicking at the same time.
Yeah.
We'll
and
see if that happens.
Xavier Johnson back, and we got to see how Indiana merges Trayce Thompson back into things. We're going to talk about Trayce.
I hope they ease him in, by the way.
It's going to be interesting, right? I mean, there's so much to talk about here. I got to make sure we don't go for 6 hours tonight. Look, that's Indiana, true. 3 straight Big Ten wins don't happen that often. They haven't happened since the 2018-19 season. That was the Romeo Langford season. And Indiana, their backs against the wall, strung together 4 straight conference wins that year at the end of the year. And it was really for naught. Indiana missed the NCAA tournament. It was a really ugly season, probably the season that Archie Miller would regret the most in hindsight during his tenure at Indiana. And that stretch had some single-digit victories in there. Indiana's won 3 straight by double figures against good teams, likely all making the NCAA tournament this season. And it's been double digits. It's been emphatic. It's been impressive. Indiana hasn't had a 5-game winning streak in the Big Ten in forever. And IU, they just don't grow on trees. IU's a chance to do that here with 2 wins this week. They're going to be favored in both games. We're going to preview both opponents coming up, so make sure you stick around for that. Jackson-Davis was absolutely insane. Back-to-back 30-point performances. You talked about the coaching. Jackson-Davis, in breaking news to Illinois fans, all he's done is shown improvement over the course of his career. 2 years ago, Jackson-Davis was averaging 1.4 blocks per game. Now he's at 3.1, and he's on the precipice of breaking Jeff Newton's all-time IU's blocks record. You talk about the improvement he's made in rebounds, in scoring. He's making 71% from the free throw line this season, which is a career high. Field goal percentage continues to get higher. What a pillar for this program to lean on. We talked on this podcast about, in adversity, which player or players step up for this team. And during that game on Sunday especially, you saw Indiana continue to feed the beast in tough situations. And yes, he missed some shots, but this is exactly what you take forward. Get Jackson-Davis the basketball and flow your offense through him, especially when he's healthy. You now see, under a new coaching staff and under a new system, Jackson-Davis isn't just a post-up player. He's attacking you in a million different ways. He's attacking off dribble handoffs. He's bringing the ball across the floor as a point center. Good luck with that, Manny Sissoko. Good luck with that, Dane Danger. Good luck with that, Zed Key, if he's able to suit up for Ohio State on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Have fun defending that. And then when the ball gets to Jackson-Davis, you're talking about some systematic changes IU's making in their offense. You're seeing guys fly around the court, cutting to the rim, floating out to the key spots on the perimeter, out on the wing, going back door. It's setting up. It's almost like Indiana's running an NFL offense out there with Jackson-Davis, the quarterback, and all these other guys are running routes, getting open on the field. No one's stationary. What a night and day difference from 2 weeks ago and from 2 years ago. This is a drastic improvement. I mean, I asked all of you on the Hoosier Sound Weekly podcast poll if we've got to talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis as the best player Indiana's seen since the Bob Knight era ended. And the majority of you say yes. And I agree. You're seeing someone who's putting together 30-point games, 5 blocks, 4 assists, 10 rebounds. He is a thorn in the side for every Big Ten team that he faces, 68% of you say yes. Over 200 votes have been in this poll just put up. Make sure you go cast your vote. You see some really interesting comments here from the masses. Why Sarge says, even among bigs, you could argue Zeller's or Bryant's skill set was better for modern basketball. That's true. But the question is, Jackson-Davis is asked to do everything here. And you're talking about college performance. Doug Seward says Oladipo. I know he's a fan favorite, but I think, Matt, Jackson-Davis is the guy, and it's hard to really stray from that. You know, Indiana's going to rely on him here the rest of the way. What's more impressive to you? Is it the offensive production you're seeing from TJD, or is it what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball, where Indiana desperately needed someone to step up?
I mean, can it be equal? Like
Yeah.
they're both
Yes.
equally important. I mean, Trayce for a couple of years has been an outstanding offensive and defensive player, both. But it started really flourishing last year with Woodson kind of letting him play more as a rim protector.
Yep.
And then boom, his block numbers started going through the roof. And in big games, especially, the last 2-3 games, like he's had really incredible blocks and block numbers. And I think he's really high as far as block shots versus block percentage goes. And like analytically, yeah, I mean, and the good news for him too is like, he wants to go to the next level, right? He wants to go to the NBA. It's all about going, and doing that. The NBA teams are going to look at these numbers and go, he can do this in the NBA. Like 100%, you can play as a small ball 4 or 5 and do this. And I think he'll eventually carve out a role for himself on some sort of team because he is that good, right? Like Trayce is a pro, and he has been for 2 years now. He's just he's been waiting for this breakout season to happen where the team also plays well and not just him, because I think it's been so unbelievably unfair to Trayce that there's the statistics like he's X versus X in an incredibly losing record against like Power 5 teams, when it's like it's not his fault his team can't pass the ball. It's not his fault. He's one guy on a team that was just fundamentally broken, especially that last year of Archie Miller's tenure. And then last year on the Mike Woodson teams that just could not get into a rhythm. No. Now you're kind of seeing a Mike Woodson team get into a rhythm. So now I'm interested to see, how do they keep it up? Again, like you said, I don't know if you brought it up yet on the podcast, but like, what is the first time IU's won 3 straight games in a row since the Romeo Langford season?
Year?
Yeah, like that. You said that to me earlier, and I was like, huh? Like, there's no possible way
it's incredible
that IU has gone this long without
3 in a row.
Three in a row.
Just three.
Right. And so again, can we make it 5? We'll talk about that in a minute.
Look, make no mistake about it. Indiana's playing better now. They're getting into a groove. But just as the rhythm is there, Indiana all of a sudden is seeing the return of Trayce Thompson. He played 4 minutes on Sunday afternoon. It was a -7, but obviously it's his first game back. You're not expecting too much. I think Mike Woodson was just curious to see what exactly Thompson could give Indiana. This is going to be an interesting decision point, Matt. Indiana's in a groove. The boat is going in the right direction, and it's going quickly, and everyone's rowing, and it's all great to see. Everyone's contributing. How do you bring Trayce Thompson back into the fold here to make sure you don't rock the boat? Do you bring him back to the same pre-injury level that he was contributing to this team, or do you manage the minutes here a little differently given what you've seen now?
I thought what they did in the Michigan State game was absolutely perfect. That is the way you bring back a player. You don't start him. You don't force him to be out there with, fresh legs on fresh legs. You bring him in when he's got the fresh legs in the second unit and kind of work him back. If he looks good on the day, you go, okay, great. Like, awesome. He's going to get more minutes today and he's going to play well. But, I thought he came out and kind of looked a little bit lethargic. He was a bit slow. He committed a couple fouls. He just kind of looked off. And so you didn't really see him much for the rest of the game, except for to get some guys some rest. And that's the perfect way to use him right now. And I think at the same point, I think Jordan Geronimo is playing and making the team better
I agree.
because of what he brings. And, it's not that Trayce Thompson is a bad player. In fact, I think Trayce Thompson is one of IU's two most important players, right? I think him and Trayce are the two most important players on the team. Now that, I think I've seen some growth from Jalen Hood-Schifino, because I would have said Xavier Johnson beforehand. But again, like what Trayce can bring to you in the passing game, what he can bring to you defensively, what he can bring to you as far as rebounding goes, it's unreplicable on this roster. But at the same time, like Jordan Geronimo's showing that he's got some skills of his own.
Yeah.
And again, he's in that groove. So you don't want to kind of mess that up. So again, I think bringing him off the bench, kind of working him back in, you saw that brace on his knee, right? And playing it was kind of like the sleeve / brace thing that he had on. Just use that as an excuse and kind of work him back in. Because again, like if you got to ride the hot hand, it's like a baseball manager, right? Like it's if you got a ace pitcher and your guy is throwing, one hitters, two hitters, it has like a 0.5 ERA for the month. Like let's not get kind of crazy. It's game 7. I know he's on, short rest or whatever. And maybe he's, a rookie and not used to the situation, but by God, just, keep playing, keep riding the horse, man.
I think there might have to be a tough conversation or two as far as Trayce Thompson is concerned. Now I'm gonna wait and see how this week goes. I want to see if Trayce looks better here in his second game back, in his third game back. I want to see him get out on the floor, test that injury, see exactly what he can contribute to this team. But I think, this is why you hired a top coach like Mike Woodson, who's been in the NBA for 30 years and has had to explain to really good players why they may not be getting that many minutes in a particular week or in a particular month or in a particular stretch of the season. Because right now, Indiana's pieces fit together very well. We've talked about this on previous podcast episodes, a lot of which you folks can go back and listen to here, and they really pertain to what you're seeing right now. Jordan Geronimo goes out there, and again, you're never going to play him 35 minutes, but he gives that infusion of caffeine that this team needs at the start of these games, and it's a little reckless and it's a little crazy, but it works. And then you see Trey Galloway.
And then he fouls out, but
he does, and that's part of the thing, right? And that's why Trayce Thompson will have a piece on this team, but I just don't know if it can be anywhere close to what it's been throughout his entire IU career. Because you see Trey Galloway, how in the world are you going to take Trey Galloway out of the starting lineup? You can't do that. The way Trey Galloway is playing, even when Xavier Johnson returns, you can't take Trey Galloway out of this rotation, and you can't limit his minutes. He does everything on the basketball court that great winning players do. He wins those key battles between the lines. He moves the basketball in the right spot. He rebounds when it's needed. He commits critical fouls. He goes over the top of screens. He collides with people. He calls timeouts when he has to. I mean, all the little things you have to do. He doesn't always break the full court press all that well. That's one thing he can improve on. But I think there may have to be a tough conversation here in a couple of weeks with Trayce Thompson as far as how much of a workload he's going to get even when he hopefully returns to full strength. Because Jordan Geronimo's been in the program for 3 years. Trey Galloway's been in the program for 3 years. I don't think you can just put him back on the pine and have them play 2 minutes a game or 10 minutes a game anymore.
Exactly.
They have directly contributed to this team. I don't know if you disagree,
Matt. They're the reason the team is
winning. This thing go. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I like Trayce having the performances that he's having.
I think he's better because of those two players. I think it's working
that's exactly
way.
what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying. Is we've seen him have these performances before, but the rest of the team kind of lets him down, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, it's like, wow, Trayce had a bunch of great numbers, but did he win the game? No. It's like he has a bunch of great numbers, and he made players around him made him better. They played as a team and not as an individual. And it's not saying that Trayce is some sort of like inherently selfish player. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying he was on a team and he's trying to carry a lifeless corpse across the Atlantic Ocean, and he's in a shabby boat, and he's got half a paddle, and like with the resource he was given, he did the most he possibly could. But this team has the resources to actually become and challenge for a title, and that's why we were so utterly just distraught 2 weeks ago after the Penn State performance, because it's like 3 games in a row of just terrible, awful performances, and nobody looks good. People are, Trayce is holding his back. We're all losing our damn minds. And you win 3 important games in a row that I thought were going to be, I thought this stretch would be 1-2 at most would be
Same.
That would be nice. And you go 3-0. It's not just you go 3-0. You stop 3 teams
Crushed.
in a row. Absolutely manhandled them. I was in a playback room with some Michigan State people watching the Michigan State game, and they're like, this game's over. They're like, I'm nervous because we're up like 15 and I've seen us blow 15-point leads, and they're like, oh, man, like IU's back, I'm not even, like Michigan State's playing, terribly. They're getting played right out of the game, and I'm sitting there like nervously like, I have seen this before. I have PTSD. But again, like they went out and proved it, and they took it to a team, and the most, like, the last thing I'll say about the last 2 games was that it's not that they just won. It was that they out-toughed the other team.
100%.
And again, after the Rutgers game, and after the Northwestern game, and after the Iowa game especially, everybody's like, this team is soft. This team is soft. And you know what? They were soft. When you go out and you have performances like that against Michigan State, and you're diving on the floor for loose balls, Miller Kopp's getting a technical foul for getting in Matty Sissoko's. Yeah. That's not a soft
Geronimo
team.
got one too, and it was out of pure intensity. I love it.
Yeah, it's not they are playing like a not soft team. So I would like to thank the Barstool account for tweeting out the triangle. Maybe it did, and some people are making the joke that it kind of lit a fire under their butts, but that might actually just be the case. And if that's what it took, like we should be tweeting out more triangles.
No one tweet at the players.
I like triangles.
No one sent letters to the players. We already went through that phase.
No.
I'm kidding. I know. I understand.
Yeah.
All that matters here is that, frankly, if you ask me what the main underlying reason is for this improvement, it really comes down to, I think, Jordan Geronimo and Trey Galloway bringing fire in their belly onto the court. They're not true freshmen. They are players that have been here for a long time, and they've gone out there. And Trey Galloway, early in the Wisconsin game, went over a screen, fouled Connor Essegian, and I vividly remember that play as one where it was like, okay, this Indiana team isn't going to be lazy today. And they weren't lazy against Wisconsin. And then they kept improving at that intensity, at that desperation, at that physicality over the 2 games that IU played last week. Indiana was soft, but the good thing is that's something you can get better at. That's something you can improve on. And that's something that I think a lot of us learn when we're 18 to 22 years old and going through college. You figure out how to get a little wear and tear and fight through some adversity in your life. And that's exactly what Indiana did over the course of the last 3 games. Incredible turnaround. Now, Indiana is not projected to win the rest of the games on their schedule. If you go to KenPom right now, the computers have Indiana finishing the season 20-11, 11-9 in Big Ten play. Now, a week ago, that was 18-13, 9-11 in Big Ten play. So Indiana has convince the computers a little bit about their improvements that they're making. But let's be honest, the expectation right now, analytically, 20-11, 11-9 in Big Ten play. So we're going to dive into these 2 games coming up, Minnesota and Ohio State, in just a second. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And there are a lot of folks we can pick from. However, we're going to tip our cap to 2 former Hoosier athletes now in the pros. Thomas Bryant with the Lakers. Oh, man. When, he's someone that has really established himself on that Lakers roster as they've made a little bit of a turnaround here and try to make a push into the postseason. Thomas Bryant, folks, he went undrafted.
Which is ridiculous, by the way.
What was that? Can you say it one more time?
Ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. And after fighting through some injuries, after fighting through that adversity we just talked about, he has gone on an absolute tear as of late, scoring 31 points and 14 rebounds in the Lakers' 121-112 victory in Portland. A much better result in Portland than the men's basketball team in March Madness this past tournament. But Bryant is only the third Laker in recent times to put up 30 points and 14 rebounds in that franchise. And by the way, he went 12 of 15 from the field in an NBA game, 80%, no big deal. Drained 4 threes, made each of his 3 free throws, didn't turn it over, plus 22. The Lakers trailed by, what is this? They trailed by 20 points at halftime. In fact, they trailed by 25 at halftime in Portland and came back to win, largely due to LeBron James and Thomas Bryant. And so, Thomas, we tip our cap to you as he has really overcome a lot in order to develop himself as a steady NBA presence. Also, we wanted to tip our cap to longtime baseball pitcher Aaron Slegers, who pitched at Indiana and made his way, fought his way into a lengthy professional baseball career lasting 10 seasons. You may have seen that Slegers recently decided to retire from the game. He has been a pretty steady force in the major leagues, usually in the top tier of baseball with a pitching, which is spot either as a sort of a spot starter or a long reliever. Again, never someone who was able to go out there and throw 98 miles an hour, but he was able to have a lengthy MLB career. Always impressive to see people make it to that top tier of the majors. Folks, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. We're going to be there for you every step of the way the rest of the season. If you enjoy our show, this part is important. Leave us a review. Tell a friend. Share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. And I'm seeing that support grow a little bit. So for those of you spreading the word, keep it up. We really appreciate it. Wednesday night, Matt, Indiana heads to Minneapolis, the cold north.
The barn.
Take on the Gophers, 9 p.m. Eastern, Big Ten Network. Fact of the matter is Minnesota is in a tier of their own in the Big Ten at the very, very, very bottom of the league. They are 7-11 this season, 1-7 in conference play. And as of the start of action here on this Monday night, they are 190th in the Ken Pom ratings. And former Marquette player, former North Carolina player Dawson Garcia picked up an ankle injury in the Gophers' 4-point loss at Michigan on Sunday. We'll see what his availability is like for Wednesday night. There's really nothing that the Gophers do well, Matt. They shoot 59% from the free throw line. They shoot 30% from three. They defend okay at an okay level. You saw them hold Michigan to 60 on Sunday. They did go to Ohio State and win. What are your thoughts as far as this matchup is concerned as IU takes on Minnesota Wednesday night?
All right. If you've never watched the Golden Gophers before, and I don't blame you if you haven't, especially this year, there's about 3 players you know on the team. That's Dawson Garcia, Jamison Battle, and Taylon Cooper. Now, Taylon is a guard who was highly heralded. I believe he was a transfer.
Yep, Morehead State.
From Morehead State. He was supposed to be like their go-to guy. Dawson Garcia, another transfer from UNC, former Indiana recruiting target. And Jamison Battle is their one returning star. They've been trying to work Jamison Battle back. He was, had an injury coming into the year. But honestly, he doesn't look the same player as he did before. He's having a bit of a shooting slump. Taylon Cooper, when he shoots the ball, looks really, really good, but he's kind of in his head. He's not shooting it very well. He's more of a pass first guy anyways. And then Dawson Garcia picked up an ankle injury. His team is all sorts of messed up, and they have absolutely no depth, right? They have those 3 guys, and in the next, 3, 4, 5 guys would not even make the bottom of IU's bench. So again, this is a team that IU needs to win and needs to win by like a nice margin, even though it's at the barn, because again, like 190th in Ken Pom. Like we played some non-conference teams some non-conference teams, some bye games that were better teams than right now than rated as Minnesota's rated currently in Ken Pom. So again, need to win this game. This is a must win. Honestly, it's the easiest game that IU has remaining on their schedule. So again, better make it 4 for 4 out of the last 4 games and 4 wins, and anything less than that is actually just a complete disaster.
That's what's interesting about this game on Wednesday, right? Indiana has nothing to gain and everything to
Everything
lose
to lose
on Wednesday
and
night.
I was doing the watch party for the Michigan game because Michigan was playing right after IU was. They're playing Minnesota, and I was watching that game, and I'm like, dude, Michigan, if you lose this, oh my god, if you lose this, because again, like it's a quad 4 loss.
It's really this one won't be because you're on the road.
You're on the road, but
it's ugly.
Michigan was playing
at home.
At home,
Yep.
So it would have been a quad 4 loss. Like that is just in conference play. It's a conference opponent. Is a quad 4 loss. It's been a while since even when Nebraska was bad, even when Northwestern was bad. I'm not sure they were quad 4s. So that is really how bad Minnesota is. So again, you got to win. Got to win on Wednesday. It's got to be a win. And it's not even just you have to win. It's not even just to win, Nathan. You have to win with style. Like it's got to be a bit of a romping again, because you remember the analytics kind of take style points now into and margin of victory into account. You need to like not lose anything from this game.
You're absolutely right. And Indiana's shown they can do that over the last few games. The pregame expectation is 74-64 in favor of Indiana. So double digits is my expectation once again. The interesting thing here is does Dawson Garcia play? Again, he was exiled from North Carolina last year, but he's still good enough to go out there and average in the double figures this season. And then the other piece of this is if you don't win by double digits, or if you at least don't establish a double-digit advantage, that's going to affect you between the ears psychologically as there are 12 minutes left in the game, as there are 8 minutes left in the game, 4 minutes left in the game. You'll be looking at this going, shoot, how is this just up 3? How are we just up 2? How are we just up 5? And you saw Indiana deal with this last year in this matchup, where the Gophers, who were slightly better than they were this season, trailed by 28 or so, 25-28 against Indiana, and almost came back to win. So
that was one of the most excruciating games.
It was ridiculous, and I was there to see that one, and it was absolutely ridiculous.
I think the moral of the story is you need to stop going to basketball games.
Yeah, it's been rough. I think between Rutgers and Penn State and the Minnesota one from last season. Yeah, usually Charlie's our on-site attendant, and he was there for Indiana's win over Wisconsin at Assembly Hall, and then there for the win over Michigan State on Sunday. The thing is, this Minnesota team, if they keep you close, they'll start believing in themselves, and they've done this a little bit. And you look at what they've done since the start of the new year. Only a 3-point loss at
shorthanded against Michigan and against Wisconsin. They've shown that they can keep up with teams even though they are terrible.
Almost went on the road, beat Michigan, almost beat Nebraska at home. Almost. Nope, just kidding. They did beat Ohio State in Columbus back on January 12th. Yeah. So this is a Gophers team that you should beat comfortably. But once they start believing, you got to watch out. Now, Illinois went there and won by 18. Purdue went there and won by 22. So teams have gone there recently and crushed the Gophers. But they're always going to be a little dangerous, especially if they start believing. Couple other numbers. The Gophers do take a lot of threes, but they've only made 30% since the Big Ten restart in January. They also don't rebound, and they don't take too many free throws when they do go to the line. 59%. If you thought Illinois was bad, Gophers make the Illini look like the Golden State Warriors.
They are some shot chuckers.
It is not great, but again, if they start believing, they're a real problem. Matt, Who do you have winning this game and by how much on Wednesday night?
It better be IU by like 25. I'm not even kidding. It is again,
Now,
if IU is
25 would
at
be pretty impressive. So you really think Indiana's going to go in there and absolutely blow them out of the water?
I mean, if the reports about Dawson Garcia's ankle are true, there's not a single person on their entire roster, plus in their student body, that can guard Trayce Jackson-Davis, right?
True.
So again, it's like he should have. I mean, like it should be hack. They should be honestly employing hack a Shack on Trayce. And Trayce shooting 70% of free throws. Like there's no reason for them to even try to guard him. Like there's no way. There's nobody on their roster to do so. Now Jamison Battle kind of scares me because he hasn't had a really good game since he's come back, and IU loves to get people comfortable. So that kind of scares me, but that he's really the only person that could take over and actually win the game for them. I don't see Taylon Cooper doing that. I don't see any of their other backups that are not very notable at all, having a pop-off game at all. And again, they don't defend the threes very well either. So they don't defend on the inside very well, especially when they're missing Dawson Garcia. And then you add in the fact they don't defend the three. Like IU should have a good offensive day. I expect a lot from Miller Kopp actually this game, because I feel like he's going to get a lot of spot up 3-pointers. And if he starts making them, like it could be a very quick IU's up 15, like fast, right out the gate, especially if they come out making shots.
Looking forward to seeing that. Remember, this is very much a homecoming for Trayce Thompson, going back to the state where he was raised. I also do have Indiana winning this game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a sleepy, sort of low scoring type of victory for IU. I've got IU taking care of business here, 68-54 in the barn.
I'll take that too.
On Wednesday night. I think Indiana's defense will be connected, but as I've said, the Gophers can defend. You do see this Minnesota team. They just gave up 61 to Purdue, although they only scored 39. They gave up 60 to Michigan. They held Ohio State to 67. So, hey, if IU goes out there and puts up an 80 burger like they've done the last couple of games, I'm going to be really impressed, in all honesty, against the Minnesota defense that isn't elite by any means, but the defense, that is their calling card. So looking forward to seeing that. I completely agree. Trayce Jackson-Davis is totally the unstoppable force for Indiana in this game. I once again, though, looking forward to seeing Trey Galloway and Jordan Geronimo bring that passion, bring that chip on the shoulder, bring that edge, because you have the capacity to maybe take Minnesota a little lightly. So bring that fire, bring that enthusiasm to the court on Wednesday night, and hopefully Indiana can grab a fourth straight win. We're going to talk about Ohio State in just a sec. That game, a huge one on Saturday night. But first, a social media shout out. And as usual on this podcast, we will carve aside some time for the Indiana women's basketball team, who have a huge week coming up. A massive week, one of the biggest weeks really in the Terry Morin era. The Hoosiers, who are sixth in the AP poll, have come off ranked wins over Maryland, Illinois. They keep adding scalps to their resume for the season. But tonight, that is Monday night, they head to Michigan for a top 15 matchup. This time the Hoosiers on the road in Ann Arbor. Again, it'll start on Fox Sports 2, move on to Big Ten Network. The Hoosiers will be all over your TVs coming up. Can't wait to see IU play this game. They had a rough game at Michigan last season, so looking to see Indiana reverse that course as far as this Monday night matchup is concerned. And then Thursday, the Hoosiers return home for a blockbuster heavyweight top 6 showdown against number 2 Ohio State at Assembly Hall. That'll be a Big Ten Network telecast. If you can make it to Assembly Hall, make sure you do. Some of these IU women's basketball crowds have been absolutely amazing to see. You saw the Hoosiers really pack the house against Wisconsin, but there are records that can still be set. I'm hoping to see maybe one on Thursday night against the Buckeyes. Should be a really good one. And then, by the way, Indiana finishes the week with a home game Sunday against Rutgers. Looking forward to seeing Indiana potentially going 3-0. And if that happens, perhaps a top 3 ranking is in the cards, which would set an all-new program record. So keeping an eye out for them. Make sure you follow them at Indiana WBB if you have not already. Find them on Instagram. Sydney Parrish is a huge TikTok presence. You can find her there. Indiana trying to go 3-0 this week with 2 top 15 wins. For our social media channels, you can find us all over the place. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, at Indiana HQ. On Instagram, we are not Indiana HQ, but what are we, Matt?
But we are Indiana dot
Thank you.
HQ.
Exactly. You can find us there on Instagram. Follow us. Join the masses here. We continue to add numbers as Indiana fans show unbridled enthusiasm for all of their athletics. And no surprise to see that. Saturday night, prime time. The Hoosiers, no noon starts, folks. Nah, those are done. Those are in the past, at least as far as this week is concerned. Indiana has an 8 p.m. Eastern tip-off Saturday night on Fox. That's the Fox network, not FS1, not FS2, not Big Ten Network. This is Fox as part of their new primetime package. Indiana hosting the Ohio State Buckeyes on a jam-packed Saturday of college basketball. The Big 12 SEC Challenge is also happening on Saturday. And Indiana got the primetime Fox slot. The Hoosiers take on the Buckeyes in a matchup of two teams that are unranked. By the way, Purdue, the only ranked Big Ten team in this week's AP Top 25, and they're at the top. Yeah. However, Ohio State and Indiana, both in the top 20 of KenPom. Ohio State 19th, Indiana 20th. The Buckeyes, though, sport an 11-8 record. They are 3-5 in the Big Ten, coming off a win over Iowa after 5 straight losses, including L's to Minnesota and Nebraska. The Buckeyes play at Illinois on Tuesday, and then come to Assembly Hall. Matt, KenPom does favor the Hoosiers by 3. Zed Key is day-to-day, but you know this Buckeyes team will be desperate for a big quad 1 road win, and they'll smell that opportunity on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about two different teams. Indiana's was in a nosedive, and as Ohio State was ascending, and then as Indiana has been ascending, Ohio State has taken a 180 and fallen off a cliff. Now that's also gone hand to hand with Zed Key being out. Again, would I be surprised to see Zed Key back on Saturday? No, because it feels like everybody comes back against Indiana this year. You talk about Paul Mulcahy for Rutgers. Insert every game basically. Somebody comes back from injury.
I think Baycott was a little hampered, and then he played for North Carolina against us,
right?
Too.
Exactly. Yeah. So everybody's just decided that they can play.
Indiana's also gotten Malik Hall and Tyler Wall. I guess whatever. Indiana's been injured. That's the unfortunate.
Indiana's been injured, and other teams have been injured. Now, again, it's what Ohio State are we getting? Are we getting Ohio State with Zed Key? And that means Bryce Sensabaugh is completely unleashed. I think the Big Ten freshman of the year in the Big Ten by far, just an absolute talent. Or are they going to get Ohio State without Zed Key, the team that literally has no post defense at all? And again, Indiana's going up against two teams this week that might be missing their big men, their starting big men, and that is tough news for opposing defenses, right? Because again, you're going up against, in my opinion, the best sole interior scorer in the Big Ten. Like Edey's just tall, and has some decent touch around the rim. Like Trayce Jackson-Davis is physical with you and athletic and has is shifty. He's much harder to guard on a one-on-one basis than Edey is. Edey, you front and make him shoot from further out. Trayce can just take you off the dribble, so you can't even take front him further out because he'll just take your big guy and slowly back him down until he can't he's underneath the rim. So again, I don't like what Ohio State are we getting? That's gonna be a game time decision, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah, and we'll pay attention to see if Zed Key dresses for Ohio State's game at Illinois. This almost reminds me a little bit of Indiana's game against Iowa earlier this year, where Ohio State's reeling, right? They lost 5 in a row. Okay, they bounced back with that win over Iowa over the weekend. But if Ohio State loses to Illinois, and we know Illinois is going to be fired up to bounce back after they lost to Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana has a chance to potentially deal a knockout blow to another good Big Ten team.
Not even just knockout blow to their Big Ten title hopes. Like if they lose both, if Ohio State loses both these games this week, I don't see a path for them to possibly make the NCAA tournament.
It's going to be really tough, right?
It'll be really tough. They will have to have a significantly winning skewed record. Like they're going to have to win. Basically almost win out to make the NCAA tournament at that point, especially given the fact that they have a loss to Minnesota on their record. They will, have a losing streak of or a losing streak of like 7 out of 8 games,
Yep.
right? Like, yeah, it'll be tough.
And they had the loss to Nebraska on their ledger.
Yep.
They had some ugly wins too along the way. They're only up by 3 at halftime to Alabama A&M, which isn't ideal. This Ohio State team with 2 losses this week would be 11-10 on the season, 3-7 in Big Ten play.
3-7 in Big Ten play. That's the big key.
And you're talking about potentially sending them to the NIT. And that's the kind of edge that you have to bring to this game. You got to play with your hair on fire. Assembly Hall is going to be absolutely rocking on Saturday night. 8 p.m. tip-off. The intoxication, what? No, the hydration will be at a tip-top shape. The festivities will be in the books, building up to that Saturday night tip-off at 8 p.m. Again, Big Fox on the broadcast. And Indiana, of course, right, will be on a 4-game winning streak going into that Saturday night affair. You talk about an Ohio State team that really has gone through a lot of transition, folks. If you haven't paid much attention to Ohio State, no more E.J. Liddell. Malachi Branham was a one and done. No more Kyle Young. No more Jamari Wheeler. No more Cedric Russell. In fact, even former Hoosier Joey Brunk moved on as well. This is a completely different basketball team that is dealing with a lot of new faces in a lot of new places. But the player that Matt mentioned just a moment ago, Bryce Sensabaugh, has absolutely taken the Big Ten by storm. He is a lethal scorer, leading the way for the Buckeyes there, I believe, at around 17 points a game. If Zedke plays, that'll help Sensabaugh. If Zedke doesn't play, Sensabaugh is going to take more shots and probably drill more shots because he's that kind of scorer. It's just a matter of, hey, do you let him go off and guard everyone else, or do you try to throw your best approach at Sensabaugh and try to limit the Buckeyes overall? It'll be interesting to see Mike Woodson's game plan. Sensabaugh, by the way, a 6'6" forward, but he's able to take threes. He's able to do a lot of stuff offensively. Very talented player. By the way, he's shooting 48% from 3 this season on over 4 attempts per game. So a very dangerous player to keep an eye out for.
A clear first-round pick, by the way.
Clear first-round pick.
Lottery pick. Yeah.
And we're talking about someone who, as you pay attention on Saturday night, is wearing number 10 for the Buckeyes. Another interesting piece in this game, Sean McNeil. Remember, Indiana was close to being his new home after McNeil entered the transfer portal out of Virginia. McNeil spurned Indiana for Ohio State. And so we'll see if the Hoosiers play with a little bit more of an edge against Sean McNeil. McNeil, number 4 this year, having a very impressive 40% mark from downtown, again, on over 4 attempts per game. In fact, both Indiana and Ohio State have made over 40% from 3 since the January Big Ten restart. Ohio State doesn't turn it over, Matt. They're going to play fast. Ken Pom has the 77-74 in favor of Indiana. The Buckeyes do have some depth. Who do you think wins this game and by how much?
Indiana will win this game, I think. I actually believe that Indiana will play them close until just about 8 minutes left, and then they'll pull away, similar to Michigan State. I'm also expecting this game to be kind of like a 15-point win. So I think 80-65, 80-64, something like that.
I think the Buckeyes pull off the upset. I think Ohio State comes into Assembly Hall on Saturday night, and I think this is the type of team that is really offensively gifted and can put Indiana's defense to a different level of a test that you've seen to this point. I'm anticipating that Zedke will play for Ohio State, and I'm anticipating that the Buckeyes have I mean they are fighting for their lives. Okay, and Indiana's going to be on a 4-game winning streak, and Indiana has sort of gotten off of the extreme hot seat where everything's on fire and it looks absolutely terrible for the Hoosiers. Indiana's resuscitated their season. Ohio State is going to come into this game. I think they're going to lose to Illinois on Tuesday night, and I think their season's going to be on life support, and I think they're going to look up every piece of thing that they can find in order to win in Bloomington on Saturday night, because they are going to really need that type of win to add to their resume, which even that may not be enough for them as you look at their overall season. So I've got Ohio State winning this game 80-78. I think it'll be kind of high scoring. I think Indiana will find a way to get points against the Buckeyes, who, by the way, have a 6th rated offense in the country, but an 85th rated defense in the country, according to KenPom. So I think Indiana will find some points, but I think the Buckeyes will end up scratching out a 1-possession victory. I hope I'm wrong. If I am, I'll eat the L on this podcast next week. I'll be more than happy to, as Indiana tries to piece together 5 straight wins in Big Ten play. What a crazy, stark contrast from the type of podcast we were having just a couple of weeks ago. Matt, as we wind down on this Monday night, any final thoughts here? IU basketball, men's, women's, football, whatever suits your fancy here. Any final thoughts on this Monday night?
Basketball team's rolling. I think the women's team deserves a lot more love. I think I said that in the last 2 podcasts, but it's true. 2 humongous games. Go watch their game, by the way. If you're listening to this right now, it's probably already happened, but the Michigan game. And then make sure you look out for the Ohio State game, both in women's and men's, because they're huge games for IU. Again, if IU can go on and win against Minnesota in the barn, I think the chance to go 5 for 5 with 5 straight wins, winning, especially in this stretch of the schedule that I thought was going to be tough for IU, except for the Minnesota game, like, would be incredible. And they've just completely turned it around. So I'm super proud of the staff and team. And Trayce looks like a national player of the year. 100%.
It's going to be absolutely incredible to see the rest of this college basketball season play out. My final thought is that there are going to be ups and downs the rest of the way. And the ups right now are incredible to watch. And this team is clearly connected and they're playing together. But there are 9 teams in the Big Ten right now that have either 3 or 4 Big Ten losses as of the recording of this podcast here on Monday
a lot
night.
of mid.
Northwestern and Wisconsin are playing each other, and if Northwestern, regardless of that result, someone will still have either 3. Both teams will still have 3 or 4 losses in the conference. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I do think Purdue is the clear-cut top team in this league, and then I do think Nebraska, I think especially Minnesota, have kind of fallen off here. Maryland looks like the next team that may end up sinking, seeing their ship sink. But at the end of the day, there are so many good but not great teams in this league, and we'll see if Indiana can string together a bunch of wins here. Because if you look at KenPom, there's only one game the rest of the way, as of tonight, only one game where Indiana is neither favored nor expected to lose by just 1 point. And that's the road trip to Purdue on February 25th. Every other game, according to KenPom, Indiana will be either the favorite or will be a 1-point underdog. So that's exactly the kind of back stretch of this Big Ten schedule where you could see Indiana getting fat. But the league is tough, and there are going to be ups and downs, and I can't wait to see it all play out. But folks, that about wraps it up for our 280th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. To make sure you don't miss any in the future, you can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.